Hi, friends. This is Mike Winters here with David Winters, and he's a person who's got some ideas about government and faith and things like this, and he's got his business here in Danville, Indiana, and we just wanted to kind of share with you some thoughts. We've been believers most of our lives, but we've also been patriots who loved the country. And ever since I was a kid, I was aware of who the presidents were, and some things about the foundations and the history of this great country. And I've seen over the years that, there's a scripture that I believe in that says, if the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? So I think if we don't return to our foundations, we kind of forget who we are. It's just like when you get together with the family reunion every so often, you say, oh yeah, I'm part of that family, for good or bad. But so it's good for us to remember where we came from and what that's all about. How you doing today, Dave?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me here today.
Absolutely, sure. Yeah, I think we're on the same wavelength in a lot of ways on this. But I wanted to. I put things many times on my Facebook page and in other places to try to remind people that if you say you're a believer, you need to exercise your influence or bring your believer's viewpoint into the world of government, politics, civics, and all this kind of a thing. And so I think probably a big part of why America has sometimes gone off the rails is because those of us who believe like the Founding Fathers did decide, let's politics and religion should be separated. I have my private faith in God, and I vote maybe, but we don't need to put them together. But in the beginning, the Founding Fathers of this nation didn't look at it that way. In fact, in a little bit, I'll share some quotes with you. Well, let's see some of your opening thoughts.
Yeah. So I think I agree with everything you just said. Christians are citizens just like everyone else.
Yep.
I mean, we're influenced or affected, I should say, by everything around us, and that includes our elected leaders and the government function. As Christians, we still have a voice, we have a conscience, and I think we have a responsibility to participate.
Yeah.
Especially if government officials and government general is making decisions about life and family and education, religious liberty and things of that nature. Why would we sit on the sidelines? We definitely need to get involved. And voting and being involved doesn't require us to put our faith aside. It just requires us to bring our conscience to the ballot and into that process.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. And I post many things on Facebook about, hey, getting involved, register and vote, pray, register and vote. And because I think that who was it that said all it takes for evil to succeed is for good men to do nothing? Mm-hmm. Do nothing. Well, there's a bunch of do-nothings out there. Their heart's in the right place with God, or maybe they believe the right way about a lot of things. Maybe the morals are in a pretty good place, but they don't think it's their place to have a voice, and so they do nothing. And so when you do nothing, the side that's determined that they're going to change things, take away our freedom, turn America upside down, destroy our foundations, they're not going to do nothing.
Well, I think it's kind of an extension of what I just said. I think Christians, if it makes sense for them and their life situation, they should get involved in politics too.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong as a Christian with running for public office.
Oh.
And I've done that myself and served in public office.
Did you know that in the original colonies, some of the things in the Constitution of the original colonies, where you had to have a public stated faith in Jesus Christ to even run for office in some of those places. Now, we're not saying that has to be the requirement, but that's how they started in the beginning.
Right, yeah, and I think that it's historically inaccurate to say that Christianity had nothing to do with our founding.
Well, in fact, this is one thing I want to point out to you. I've got a little thing here called, it's a picture of the Appeal to Heaven flag. And George Washington commissioned that these flags would be flown over all the American ships that were engaged in the Revolutionary War, because they were taking on Britain, but had the greatest military and navy in the world at the time. It was the conquering power. It was the ruling power. And there's no way we were going to get our freedom from them if we did didn't rely on some help from above. And even Ben Franklin, when they were arguing over what to do about the Constitution later on, said, gentlemen, if you remember, the reason why we've had any success in overcoming this great opponent of ours for our own freedom was because we always took time to pray and engaged in our prayers. In fact, in a minute, I want to share with you some other quotes, but it's an appeal to heaven. A lot more people are, we've even put that up in our previous church, but it's just a good thing to say that that's where our hearts are. And in a minute, I want to quote to you some of the founding fathers. What's your other thoughts?
Just going back to the founding, I believe that one of the main premises of our country even being founded was for religious liberty, and it was such an important thing to our founders that they made it our absolutely our first right in the Constitution.
Yeah, the first, yeah.
And so I think,
rights.
And the misconception, we probably don't have time to go down this rabbit hole, but the misunderstanding of what religious liberty is. It says the government cannot make any laws respecting a religion. It doesn't say that you can't bring your faith to the public square, and it gets so misinterpreted over the last century, really.
And this whole thing about the separation of church and state.
Right.
Thomas Jefferson was writing a letter to the Anabaptists, and what he was not saying was, we'll make sure that no religion stays out of government. What he was saying was, we'll make sure that government doesn't get in the way of religion. Yeah. And so, as you quoted that First Amendment, we cannot establish a faith or a religion, but it also cannot prohibit the free exercise thereof. Well, and to me, that means it's okay to bring the exercise of your convictions into every square: business, politics, entertainment, whatever.
And we don't want a theocracy. I think we've seen around the world that theocracies are not a good thing.
Nope.
But if we're going to be involved in the public sector, whether it's a business owner or an elected official or some other form of political involvement, we don't have to drop our faith off at the front door.
No.
In fact, while we may not make decisions or cast votes or whatever based specifically on our theology, we certainly go to God and ask for guidance, and we do look at our faith and the things we believe in as we cast our votes or as we get involved, and I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and I think more folks should be willing to stand up and be that.
Well, that is true, and one of the reasons I'm going to quote a few of the founding fathers and their thoughts on the subject is so that some people want to say that here we are in the 21st century, and all of a sudden we decided we were going to make politics all about our religion. No, and as he was saying, no, we don't want a theocracy. We don't want to have a government that says if you don't believe according to my denomination's beliefs, you can't be engaged or you're not welcome as a citizen. We're not saying that. What we are saying, though, is that please recognize and remember that the foundations of this nation, why we have freedom, why we have liberty, why we have powerful military, why we have all the great things that we have going for us, an opportunity for people, is because it was founded on biblical principles, which means we honor and respect the individual. The individual matters. The idea of out of the Declaration of that we're given by our Creator the certain inalienable rights, which is the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And all these things are given by God and only supposed to be protected by government. Our rights are not from government. Our rights are from God. But what we have to do is have to just say that we're going to have the government is actually here to protect those rights and make sure that tyranny doesn't take those rights away from us. Let me quote a few things quickly, and then I'll get back to you. Dave, you're doing a great job here today. I believe we're saying some things very important. Patrick Henry. Now, the reason I'm quoting these people, again, is to let you know that this thing about religion in politics is not just some new thing by a bunch of religionists that want to take over the country. No, we're wanting just to say, well, the only reason I'm quoting these is so you'll know the true history and the true foundation of this country started by believers in God, faith, religion. Patrick Henry says it cannot be emphasized too strongly that this great nation was founded not by religionists but by Christians on the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's Patrick Henry, the guy that said, give me liberty or give me death. George Washington said this, do not let anyone claim to be a true American who attempts to remove religion from politics. That's George Washington. And I think that guy might have had some idea on what this country was supposed to be. Mm-hmm. You know, there are times when, like, for instance, John Adams made a statement that our constitutional government is only meant for a moral and religious people, because it wouldn't work for anybody else. Because when you're moral and religious, you seem to be willing to put restraints on your own ambitions and impulses for the sake of the good of others. Yep. And for the sake of the good of all. And so that's why he said that, because, that's why you can say thou shalt not kill. You can say murder is a crime, but the reason why it works well enough for most of us is because something on the inside of us says, well, it's just not right to take somebody's innocent life. All right, so I want to just quote a few more. John Witherspoon says, those who pay no regard to religion, he was one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. John Witherspoon. He said, those who pay no regard to religion and seriousness in the persons whom they send to the legislature of any state are guilty of the greatest absurdity and will soon pay dear for their folly. And he was saying, if you don't make sure that you elect people that have good morals and good religious convictions, and that their hearts are in the right place, then if you vote them into power, you're going to be sorry. Because they'll get up there because they don't have any faith in God or any sense of accountability to God or to one another. We love each other, so we treat each other right. He said that John Witherspoon, it says, if you don't care about the religion or the morals of the people you vote into power, it's going to come back to bite you. And all right, and Samuel Adams, I want to just give a couple more because I know I want to let you speak again. May every citizen in the army and in the country have a proper sense of deity upon his mind and an impression of the declaration recorded in the Bible that says here in 1 Samuel 2:20, him that honors me, I will honor. God, this is supposed to be a quote from the Bible. Him that honors me, I will honor, but he that despises me will be lightly esteemed. Samuel Adams, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. And just one more here. I've got several I could quote, but I'm going to quote this one. And it says, we have no government armed with the power capable of contending with human passions. That's what John Adams says. We don't have any government that is so strong and powerful that if people want to misbehave and be lawless, that we can stop all of that. And that's why you hear people say, well, let's make a new law against gun control or guns or something. Make a new law to control this or that misbehavior. And what John Adams was saying, well, if they don't have it in their heart to do right, some people are going to follow the worst impulses and do wrong anyway. That's why you have to have police and prisons and things like that. So we have no government armed with the power capable of contending with human passions, unbridled by morality and true religion. If you don't have your impulses to be selfish and do things that would hurt others for your own advantage, he said, there's no constitution or law that will stop that unless you have a heart that loves people and loves God. And our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. John Adams said that, only our Constitution. You can make laws against everything, but if people in their hearts are just wicked and just don't want to do right and don't care about the benefit and welfare of others, they're just going to continue to do wrong, and laws are not enough. So that's why, in other words, we got to persuade people to let them have a change of heart, friendly toward God and loving toward one another, honoring each other as citizens. And it says, our Constitution is made only for moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. And I could quote many others, and maybe I will some of the time. But the point of the fact is I'm just trying to illustrate to you that we're not just suddenly trying to throw religion into the picture, that these kind of people had to do with the foundations of this nation from the beginning.
Yeah.
David.
Well, and obviously part of this discussion today is talking about people of faith getting involved in politics,
Right, yeah.
and not being afraid to speak their faith. And I just have a one stat here. I don't want to bore everyone with a bunch of stats, but according to Pew, Christians made up about 79% of registered voters in 2008, compared to only 64% in 2020.
Why?
And I think that's a huge thing there. I mean,
alarming.
But we've got to get involved, and whether you're a Christian or not, I mean, you should be involved in your political process and understanding, what the candidates stand for, and how that how that applies to the Constitution. Is it compatible with the Constitution?
Right.
And then as a believer in Christ, does that person carry that same thought process, or at least are they going to go against, if they were in office, are they going to go against what I consider to be important Christian principles?
Sure. Well, I know people that are not necessarily real religious, and maybe don't even go to church very often, but because they've been raised in America, they still have a general sense of what's good and right and moral.
Well, that's an interesting comment too, because I think that I welcome folks who come to our country that are here to make our country better, but also understand and believe in what America stands for. And I think that whether you are, like you said, whether you are a hardcore Christian, go to church every week, if you've been in this country your entire life, you've been raised with that American greatness and the influence, and so and if you pay attention to the correct history, you see how dictatorships around the world over time have not ended well for people, especially Christians. If you've been in that influence, you at least have an appreciation for what we stand for.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say that one of the things we want you to know, believe it or not, but especially if you believe in the good old-fashioned moral principles that founded America, like I said, whether you're real religious or not, whether you're in church every Sunday or not, if you agree with those original founding principles about law and order, and citizen responsibility, and each of us needs to stand up for our own selves, and to do right toward others. If you believe in that, I'm asking you to please register and vote. And these midterm elections this year are going to be so important. If we see the slate of candidates, I don't want to get real political in real sense, but there's a group of them calling themselves Democrats, socialists. And really, if you look at their proposals, it's more like anarchy and communism. So I'm not, this isn't a slam against Democrats or Republicans or anybody. What it's really just saying is, you got to know what people are proposing. And here in the modern age of media, if you can do a great job on social media and you smile at the cameras and look right, you can have the most evil intentions and the most evil policy proposals, but get votes because you know how to smile and get everybody to like you, and maybe you got a friendly reporter who wants to make you look good. But I've seen some, like the guy in Michigan is running for Senate and things like this, that my goodness sakes, if you understand what their real true intentions are, to take away your freedom, to impose maybe a form of law, I guess I could say Sharia, a form of law that would restrict you, that would make you the outlaw if you didn't go along with them, and take away your freedoms. I just think we need to say this: register and vote and study the candidates. I got a particular political party I vote for most of the time, but I would just say, why is that? Not just because of the name, but because their positions are things that I most of the time very much agree with. But citizen participation is so important, don't you think?
I do, and I want to add one thing to that. It's one thing to get involved every 4 years in the big election, the presidential election, but having been involved in local politics for 7 years now, I can tell you right now, the midterm elections and the off-year elections for your localities, your municipalities, your school boards, and things like that, those are, in my opinion, more important because, as they say, politics is local.
Yes.
And if you're not aware of who you are electing at the local level, you could very well be launching the career of someone who is going to do not the best things for our country and for you individually. So get involved. If you're not registered yet for this November, you can register, I think, all the way up through the 1st of October. But call your local area to figure that out.
This
but
means
definitely
you only
get
got
out
about
there.
another month to do it.
Right, you don't have much time, so get involved.
Yeah, and I think it's very important, and I don't know about, I know you've been a voter and a participant in the fact that you're involved in the system and have been serving in different places, that is certainly in your heart and mind. And I know that myself, as I said earlier, I've known about political things and presidents and American history from the time I was a kid. So I've all my life been interested in such things. But if you're one of those people that says, well, I'm not really into it that much. But just please think of it this way. You need to participate for the sake of your children if you love them, and your grandchildren if you love them, because their future will be determined by whether or not you affect the course and the direction of government and the choosing of the political candidates and the government that you have. So please, get registered right away. You can do it through your courthouse, different ways to do it. I guess you can even through your driver's license.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a while since I've registered.
But look, you can Google anything else, so why don't you Google that?
Yeah, right.
And find out how to get registered in your county. And vote, and study the candidates. And don't vote, I'm not begging you, don't vote for anybody that will take away our American identity or our American freedom and prosperity. Please, for the sake of your children and your grandchildren. And then one last thought, if you're a believer, I think you have an extra obligation to God to voice His place, His heart, in everything you do, whether it's on your job or in your family or whatever else, but especially right now we're talking about voting in elections. Do you have a last thought you want to share with us?
No, I think that's all good, and yeah, just get involved, and there's enough information out there. So to say that you don't know, you're not informed, there are ways to do that, and I encourage you to make that effort.
Yes, amen. And I'm reading a quote here from Thomas Jefferson. He says, I'm a real Christian, a disciple of the doctrines of Jesus. I have little doubt that our whole country will soon be rallied in the unity of our Creator. So in other words, people that say Thomas Jefferson wasn't really a believer, yes he was. But anyway, hey, thank you so much for this time. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for having
sharing
me.
your thoughts with me.
Yep.
I appreciate
Enjoyed
it.
it.
And we'll talk to you soon. Get registered and vote. Midterms, very important. Thanks.